In a rapidly shifting society, now more than ever, it is essential to stay grounded. Balance is key, but harmony is better. Here, we provide the keys to tap into the divine masculine without sacrificing the divine feminine, because confusion not transmuted becomes confusion transferred.
This is Divine Masculine Activated, a weekly Tuesday evening tap-in brought to you by Mastermind Connect and curated by the good brothers J.D. Weatherspoon and Courtney Grange. We invite you to grab your activation method of choice, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and bring your whole self into this space.
All right, so we in here.
We is.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls,
Children of all ages.
welcome to another episode of Divine Masculine Activated. I am Courtney Grange. He is
JJ Diggy.
Odaro Jack.
That part. Man with the Puma apparel.
But we are here today to bring back one of our favorite guests and move the conversation that we've been having around let's talk about sex a little bit more into the direction of like, what happens after sex? What happens before sex?
And we're not talking about naps and sandwiches.
Even though those do happen before and sometimes after sex.
Sometimes during if you play it right, but we ain't gonna talk about that right now.
Ooh. Listen, if anybody out there has a story about sex whilst eating a sandwich, please DM us. Like, this would be the dopest thing to be able to highlight. Like, I love it. You don't count, dude.
I'll slide in the DM just on the strip because you say it, bro.
Let's get it to it.
In the IHOP parking lot. All right, anyway.
Thank y'all for joining today. We have our good friend, the sex doctor herself, Dr. Lex Brown James. In keeping with the spirit of our alt-black theme for this year, Dr. Lex joins us to hip us to the world of Black kink, sex therapy, sex supervision, sex after parenting. We just gonna take this thing to every single aspect.
Positive parenting, please don't forget.
Positive parenting. Listen, there's going to be a lot of buzzwords in this conversation that you might have heard for the first time, and you need to save as a hashtag. Because trust us when we say the good sister is out here doing
God's work.
God's work. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, without further ado, Dr. Lex.
Oh my goodness. Y'all are the best. I love being here. I love being here. I want to know about this sandwich. Was it on the back? Never mind. I feel like it's a choking hazard. I feel
No. Seated. Like I'm a firm believer in like the ergonomic design of the what's the bucket seat? I was in a GMC vehicle. So
ladies and gentlemen, that is your first lesson. Tetris is not just good work for kids.
No. Has its benefits.
Well, Lex, thank you as always for joining us today. If you wouldn't mind, grace the good people with just, give them who you are, what you do, that package, so they know what they're about to be. Let them know.
Easy peasy. So I'm Dr. Lex, she, her, doctor are my pronouns. I am a licensed marriage, family, and therapist, and also a certified sexuality educator and supervisor. Lots of words to say. I talk about sex a lot. And I talk about sex positivity from womb to tomb for folks. I run a private practice where I mostly see lovers. And in that lovership building, I help lovers create, maintain, and build and perpetuate intimacy. And then on the education side, I do a lot of diversity, equity, inclusion work, as well as teaching people how to have shame-free sex education, all access, all medically accurate, all the time.
That sounds like a really great Revolt TV channel. All sex, all accurate, all the time.
Right?
Listen,
I wish it was, worldwide.
in a world where the space around intimacy, emotions, sex, and all of these things tends to be dominated by people who don't look like us, telling us what to do with our bodies. Again, I say you are doing God's work, sis. Like, thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thanks for that.
And without any further ado,
right,
let's get into kinky sex. Let's get into kinky sex. Like, we're just gonna dive right in head first, because I mean, if you're kinky, that's pretty much how you got into it. But specifically, I wanted to start with Black kink, because if you know, there is differentiation needed, and so it's not something that I've seen a lot of people talk about. But we touched on it in our first episode with you back in season 1 in like very, very short supply. But I wanted to like open that space up first so that we get real vulnerable real quick. I love sex as much as I'm sure both of you all do. But what was the first thing that got you comfortable to explore your kink? Was it always there? Or did you have to, like a lot of us, transition to feel more comfortable moving into those spaces?
I think it was reading for me, right? So reading different scenarios, reading different scenes, reading about power play, and fantasies. And so #about me, I only read Black erotica stuff on the outside world. Like, people are like, what are you reading right now? I'm not reading some self-help book by Brene Brown. I'm not. I do that stuff in my regular work, as part of my job. So even like my maternity reading list is like Black filth. What hood genre Black shit, like who's fucking whom? Yes, I need like an Alexandria House. Yes, who enforces? That's what I read on the regular basis. So
awesome.
So I think
no wonder your man be building plant boxes outside.
My lover does it all. And I think starting when I started grad school, I would say college. So in college, I majored in physics. I wasn't, a relationship therapist or coach, but it turns out I kind of was. So people would come to me with like how to safely do things. And I don't know why I had some of this knowledge, but I did, I guess from the books. But I was like, yo, it's not how we need to go about that. That's not safe. And then learning more, I was like, oh, we need this education because we only see white folks doing it.
That part.
It's amazing how much modeling does matter, right? It influences, like, I don't see myself reflected in this scene, thus it's not for me. Or, the way in which it works out may be like appropriate or functional for that context, but mine isn't quite the same. And so even if I attempt to do what I see, might not get the same result.
Well, my thing's always been for the masculine types and folks, right? The idea that they can only be the kinky dom.
That's right.
All the time. And I'm like, y'all not tired? You're not tired of doing all the decision making, all of the leading with pleasure? Like, what would it be like if you just were able to submit? Right. If you were just able to lay down that role and trust somebody else to bring you pleasure.
Which brings up, like, I want to double click on that really quick, because the construct of dominant and submissive personality versus a switch and go between both. It was one of the first things I had to right size for, because I didn't have the language for it when I was doing it. The language came way later, right? Like, I am 1000% someone who loves to switch. I have no desire to do all the work, and I have no desire to have like everything done for me. But at the same time, I like, to that dance of things.
Yeah, the balance.
I never knew what that was. But once I started getting into like allowing myself to accept, all right, these kinky natures, I had to also learn the lexicon. Right? And like language helped so much. And I know for a lot of Black men, it's a space where like we finally get the words for a lot of the stuff that we've never been able to feel comfortable saying. You know what I'm saying?
Which now gives us the space to really like visualize and create right? Because you can't really be what you don't see.
Yeah.
And language is a great way to help frame, what that's going to look like. Words are worlds, to me, at least.
I love that.
Right? And so, now it's a brand new reality that we get to build. And then now having the space, even though, depending on who you talk to, right, we've gone too far in the other direction, right? And when they're a bit too in tune their feminine side. And that lets me know where you stand on the matter. But at the end of the day, back to the masculine feminine polarity piece, now there's space for liberation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because so that this perfect segue to my question to you, Lex, is, preface this, for me, I know I was able to get a lot of understanding about boundaries and communication specifically, right? Once I applied myself to kink in a healthy fashion, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to one that was just purely cathartic. What lessons have you learned from your involvement with kink?
What lessons? I think there's quite a few, right? So one is in Black kinkiness, there's a divestment from whiteness.
Mm-hmm.
There is a allowing Black bodies to exist solely in pleasure, which isn't permitted outside in regular spheres. And even, I would say, even a lot of Black spheres, because I'm, again, from the South and I'm a recovering Baptist. So this whole, you're not supposed to have pleasure and you're supposed to sacrifice for God. And the more respectable you are, the more worthy you are. So that bull, right? I think kink lets people break out of that. And then also kink is a spectrum. People want to be like, oh, you in a latex outfit with a ball gag blindfolded. I'm like,
latex type. Nope.
No, maybe not. There's a bunch. Oh, you want to cage my balls? No, actually, I don't.
Nor do I want you to burn me with cigarettes.
Right? Where are y'all getting this kink idea from? Right? People don't realize getting smacked on the booty is kinky. That's impact play. Right? I do want people to back off the choking, because everybody's like, "Oh, I like to be choked." I'm like, your brain takes 60 seconds without oxygen to stop functioning.
And let's be clear, there's a difference between choking and yeah, man.
It's the side. It's being able to count. It's being able to not be so caught up in the moment. People pass out and think that's sexy and fun. I'm like, this is one of the most dangerous types of kink play. Breath play is one of the most dangerous types. And you just gonna let dude you met from Tinder 2 days ago, who's been practicing down by looking at porn.
Not the Tinder swindler. Yeah.
No. Mess with your throat. They're crushing tracheas out here. And
crushing tracheas out here.
No. So I think there's an art to it, right? And there's also rope bondage, and we got to be aware of people who are predatory, who don't listen to boundaries, who don't set boundaries. That was the thing with 50 Shades of Grey. Everybody fell in love with 50 Shades of Grey, and I was like, it's an introduction.
Yes.
It's an introduction. It's cute. Baby. Ain't nobody sitting at the end of a long table with pages of contracts.
Nah, it works.
That's not how it works. And if Christian Grey was poor and ugly, he'd be a stalker.
Yeah.
It's a great introduction. I want people to go out and get more education, right? And go to play parties and learn how to do this safely and know that, yes, you can take all of the impact to your butt and to your thighs. And yes. And does that person know not to hit you in the kidneys?
Because, do I really want to piss blood for a week after I've had great sex?
Or, end up in the ER and be like, how did you get here? And I'm just like, well, there was this cat of nine tails that I wanted to try. And
yeah, and then also the realization that in kink community, you have off days, even if you're someone who, for example, the first time I kicked it with someone and realized that even people who do stuff like swing, even if they go to sex parties, they don't always necessarily participate. Sometimes they're just there.
Exactly.
Support, somebody's got to bring in more lube. There's always a job.
There's always a job.
And so,
in those kink spaces, right? And so those kink spaces, that permission to either be there and witness, to be there and participate, Like, there's so many different ways, and
Yeah.
there's so many different types of kinks. Like, people are in the feet, people are in the smells, and we don't yuck anybody's yum. Like, if that's for you, that's for you. I don't want to do it, but you go for you, boo. Enjoy, and give your body time to recover. So people forget that, like, hey, you just went through this whole nettle scene. We need some aftercare. The person who put you through the nettle scene needs some aftercare. Maybe their wrist are tired. Maybe they're thirsty too.
Yes.
So as we're all coming down from like this body high and this space that can be so amazing to exist within.
Yeah, it's like skydiving. Like, all right, so after we're done, like, so can we, back to your double click, I'm borrowing your jargon, Courtney. Aftercare, what is it and why is it necessary?
Oh, that's good.
Good question. So aftercare, which is just a term just like foreplay, right? So we know foreplay happens all throughout the experience. Aftercare is something that happens after what we call a scene. So when people engage in consensual kinky play, and when that scene comes to an end, right? Somebody's body is done, all the pleasure has been had, maybe something went too far. It is a way that they are able to be taken care of. So as their body's endorphins and as all of those good hormones are flowing through their body, they can come back to normal. And some people's aftercare looks very different. So some people are like, leave me alone, don't talk to me. Some people are like, I need all the butt cuddles and I need to cry. Some people are like, can I get some ice cream and can we watch Spider-Man? Like, it just depends on the person and what they need to be able to come back to themselves so they can go back into the world and function normally.
Gotcha. And I'll add, and it depends on the experience, right? Because sometimes different aftercare is needed, like you were saying specifically with the metal play. Like, let's be clear, there is some sort of like physical rejuvenation that's necessary.
Yeah.
Even if you want to go watch that Spider-Man movie, like, but baby, let me take care of your areas first, right?
Right.
All of this to me, and back to what JD was saying about like the way that we always like to weave things into masculine and feminine, right? The balance of stuff. All of this sounds like super familiar from a tribal perspective, like how tribes work, how communities work. And to unfortunately, fortunately, quote one of the white ladies in the space right now, like Esther Perel talks about this. She's the first person I actually got to read.
You have such a crush on Esther Perel, dude.
A Belgian bae, man.
Esther Perel's amazing.
I really do appreciate how, but it's not just because of what she brings up. It's how non-biased her opinion tends to be. Like, she really does give it from every single perspective. So it's just like, look, I'm gonna just put it out here. It's for you to decide. But she talks about this concept of intimacy being largely geared towards the feminine, right? Like, it's almost as if the feminine perspective has owned the rights to intimacy as long as we can identify it. And so that concept of like into me see, right? The deeply caring, the deeply emotional, the free-spirited, the feels, so to speak, aspect of intimacy is really all we're tuned to. And even in therapy, a lot of times there's this conversation, and the way she quoted it was like, you might often hear a more feminine partner say, well, I need them to express their feelings more. And we never actually hear anybody say, well, maybe you need to express your feelings less. Right? Looking at the construct of intimacy, not just from a perspective where it's about looking into me, but also this concept of like safety and trust. And I am most intimate when I don't have to look back and see you because I know you've already gotten my back, right? From a tribal perspective, if I'm making the fire and you got to get the water, if you come over and your back hurts from getting the water, it has nothing to do with me. You're just excited and happy that I built this fire, so all your work is worth it. And now we both get to eat. It is literally an environment where we are not just symbiotic, but like we choose that symbiosis for survival. A lot of times from what my experiences have been with kink and learning about it is you have to get into that space where it's like there's a trust, there's a surrender, but there's a different type of intimacy. It's not always about what you know about me, because a lot of times you don't know. You're testing things, right? And you're exposing the partner to something that they never knew they liked because you did it in a certain way, right?
Yeah.
So there's always this need for communication and all these things that come into it. But I that point around intimacy when we talk about sex, I got to imagine that comes up a lot for you in your work in therapy, right? When you're getting into what is intimacy, how do we cultivate these spaces, how do you keep it going, all of that stuff. The role of sex positive sexual experiences in therapy. Could you talk a little bit about that for us? Like, where does that fit in your practice? How do you see people respond to it? Especially folks who are coming from like a previous therapist that didn't touch on it at all. I would love for you to share like what that world looks like.
I mean, that's my wheelhouse, right? So I see a lot of folks who are like, I went to this therapist, we never talked about this. In my consultations, I tell every lover and every person that I see, I have a sex history interview, and that's a whole session. And it's a consensual interview. You tell me what you want to tell me. If you don't want to tell me something, you can pass. That's absolutely okay. And that permission is clutch, because we don't get permission to talk about sex out loud. I still have adults who whisper like sex. I'm like, so we're talking about sex. Your volume changed. Tell me what that is. And there's a lot of shame around it, right? A lot of dirtiness, a lot of badness, a lot of I am bad and I am unlovable because of the sex and sexuality that they're presenting.
You do a lot worth, lot of, intrinsic value, a lot of self-worth, a lot of self-esteem. Those topics, I imagine, like those are like the first levels you probably end up going through before you go deeper.
Very much so. So in my history interviews, I start at childhood. I say, like, what was the atmosphere of sexuality like in your home and where you grew up? What did you learn about nakedness and your body? Right. And so I learned so much throughout. We talk about masturbation and porn and your sexual debuts and anything that was sexually odd or uncomfortable. So in that work, I discovered things that lovers never tell their partners. They're like, I've never told my partner this, and we've never talked about this. And I'm like,
and why not? Like, now
we're having flashbacks during sex, and your lover doesn't know what's going on, but like you're reliving a trauma during the sexual encounter with your partner.
So now they're thinking they're doing something wrong.
Well, they're just like, yeah, we just get through it. Meanwhile, their partner's telling me, yeah, all of a sudden they just stop in the moment, and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So our sex life isn't satisfying. Because they're just missing each other. They've never come together to have those conversations. Or I find that one partner is realizing that they're pansexual, or bisexual, or allosexual, or something. And their other partner is like, something's different about them, but I don't know. But they never had conversations about their desires. And I'm like, all right, well, we need to have some conversations. And so, Courtney, to your point, I definitely find I lean into vulnerability, right? That's the big thing for intimacy. I'm like, for intimacy to happen, you all have to learn how to be vulnerable, because y'all be spitting truths, but y'all not honest. Truth is how you're perceiving it. Honesty is that vulnerability. It's like, yeah, you pissed me off. It was
saying truth, but you ain't honest.
That's the truth, right? That's not the honest part of it. The honest part is I was really angry because I felt real betrayed in that moment. I thought I was abandoned. That's honesty.
That's honesty. Yep.
Right. And truth changes based on the moment and the perception.
Absolutely.
And so people be arguing, and y'all seen this, y'all probably been in it. Y'all been arguing, but no, you had said, well, I ain't say that. That's not what why are we? I'm like, y'all are arguing about some bullshit. I don't really care.
Yeah.
About the content of this conversation.
That is probably one thing. And I'm probably at this point on like 5 years of therapy, right? Like investing in it for pretty much 5 years straight in some way, shape, or form. And the ability for me to own calling into a space of vulnerability through like there's never any negative intention for most people that are trying to care for someone else, that genuinely are trying to care, right? You may get it wrong. Yeah. But in any scenario, like your intention was to do something in a way that took care of you. So it's never about like what happened, because you either didn't know, you didn't have access, you weren't aware, you were suppressing, whatever the situation was. Like getting to that honest thing where it's like, I just felt abandoned. And on the other side, it's like, I just felt like I didn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It's nobody's fault. It just is that is because we're human, and all of these different scenarios that we go through make us who we are today. And back to JD's point around language, like your ability to have language for what you're experiencing truly does determine the gravity of your universe.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I'm still caught up in that y'all spitting truths, but y'all not honest. Like, I'm a sit down. 56.
And that's the thing. That language is so powerful because I often have to help lovers, and I'll say specifically Black men and people who are more masked, be able to even have the language to determine how they're feeling. Because Black men in our society are only allowed to be just okay, right? Slightly angry. You can't be too angry because then you're dangerous.
That's right.
But you got to be just like it's good, right? But have you ever heard like the way a man say bruh?
Bruh.
Man, I got goosebumps from it, right? Because just the different levels, like, yo, man, how you doing? Like, bruh. And I'm like, that's where we at today? Let's go. Right? And they're like, I don't even know what this is. And I'm like, yeah. So this wasn't just disrespect for you. This was fear.
Yeah.
And also that is okay. And I think, especially for us, like, Gen Z, not necessarily as much. There's a lot more freedom and wiggle room there. But I know, like, from a 90s babies and before, like, you know, coming up through Reaganomics, it was different outside, bro. Like, fear was like, all right, cool. So you just gonna put the target on your, you took the target off your back and put it on your front now.
Right here.
Right.
Every day.
Oh, you afraid. Okay, cool. So now it was real predator prey, like, not because it needed to be, this is what it was.
Right.
And so all of this takes me now into like the supervision space. For you, because that's a major part. So if you will allow me briefly to quote your words to you on the camera. Let me see. So as one of 3 BIPOC ASEC certified sexuality educators, Dr. Lex teaches from a constructivist pedagogy and thinks that supervision is your time to hone your skill with guidance. Right? And so there's so much in here. But I think on the point that we were just on, 10 seconds ago, how do you provide that space for this liberation to occur, right? While also providing that container in which people understand that they are fully safe and in good hands, so that they can say, you know what, listen, I freaked out. I didn't know what to do. This experience is related to something that happened to me, or that something that I did to someone else.
Yeah.
Because people, there's still pain and harm from the stance of victimizing someone else.
Yes.
As you do such as done. Like, how do you, because it seems real bespoke, like your solutions are custom fit to everyone that you work with.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
I mean, part of it's skill. I'm not gonna hold you. I've been doing this for over a decade, and I've definitely messed up.
Talk your talk.
I've definitely messed up with folks, right? I'm not the right fit for everybody, and that's okay. Another part of it, I think, is recognized, especially for my skin folk, kin folk, that we operate out of survival. We've been operating out of survival for a very long time. It's to a point where sometimes we don't know that there's more. We don't know that it doesn't have to be this way because we ain't seen the models, right?
Yeah.
How many moms, how many lover relationships, right? Especially growing up, like I'm an 80s baby, right? So coming out of crack, right? Going into the HIV movement, seeing people struggle to survive, seeing moms put up with struggle love, right? Having dads not in the home, right? I had a dad in my home, which made me privileged. Because not everybody had a dad.
Gainfully employed with some insurance. Like, you're basically a 1%er.
Right? Right? Not, we ain't always have hot water. We ain't always have electric. But like, I had a 2-parent household.
Yeah.
And that's a major feat. And I had parents who like showed affection. I had parents who liked each other. My parents rarely argued out loud that we could see, right? So I had I had a loving model. And people don't know that. People don't know that they can have that. And I'm like, yo, we got to get you out of survival mode to let you know you're safe. You're safe here. I'm not trying to take your kids away. I'm not like, okay, so you're telling me that you beat this woman. I got you. Tell me what was going on for you. And people rarely get to see the remorse that I get to see.
Yeah.
Right.
the breaking down, sobbing narrative that I'm a monster or I'm never going to be good or I'm never going to have any good.
So now we're back to the shame in the
I
what?
have that privilege and I get to sit with that in my office. And it's a privilege every time that somebody shows me that level of vulnerability.
Mm.
And I treat it like that. I treat it as, you're not empty. It's not my job to fill you up. You're a whole human. You have all these experiences. It's not my job to reshape those experiences to make them good or to make you good. It's not my job. My job is to walk next to you to get you where you want to go.
Ooh, come on with it.
And that's my privilege in my work. Like that's what I get to honor every session, every client. And that's what makes it like all the while for me.
Lex, I gotta say, you might be making me reconsider my therapist at this point.
Yeah, right.
Just say
the bar just went higher.
But it is one of those things that you get to experience the more that you do participate in therapy, is you have a better understanding of what it's for. And the fact that there's different types of therapy for different things. And one therapist is not good at everything. Period.
And if they don't tell you that they're not good at it, get a new therapist.
Know. Or one therapist isn't good in perpetuity because as your life experiences change, you need to hear different voices. You need to have different types of somebody's walking beside you. It just is what it is in this space where like you transition out of survival, because even when I was hearing you talking about the bruh aspect, right? There's also the other side of that. When you do start to experience more abundance, especially as a Black man, you do start to embrace the fact that like, while the journey to peace might have been painful, peace itself shouldn't hurt. So you get to that space and now it's like, I don't know what to do with my hands. So the bruh moves from bruh to bruh. And it's like this excitement, these feelings are good. And I still don't really know what to do with them. And so that can cause regression, right? And this is where a lot of times where we get into our first healthy relationship as a Black man, or our first healthy sexual experience, where a woman may say something to us like, have you ever gone to a sex party? Or whatever exposes us to the fact that like Black women been on when it comes to not just this intimacy and this love thing, this sex thing. We largely haven't been in the kinky spaces, but like you see Black women all up and through there, figuring it out and processing it. Now, I think that goes back to the point that you were saying around, well, JD was saying around the survival piece, especially for us like 80s and 90s babies. Like when you in warrior mode, the parts of you that aren't active towards what gives you pleasure, what gives you joy, because you have to put those behind you to move forward.
You can't score on defense.
You do that for 15 years, 20 years, and in that time period, you lose your virginity. Well, excuse me, let me run back. You get your first erection, right? You have your first wet dream or your first experience where your body's doing this pleasure thing. You lose your virginity in the circumstances in which all of those things tend to occur, whilst all this joy, all this pleasure, all this vulnerability is just like, that don't never get to come out.
And double quick on that piece, like, we're not even talking about the people who have been, institutionalized and whose incarceration process started at the age of like 14.
Yeah.
That adds different layers of complexity, but that's
absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Or you take the level of poverty that a lot of us experience growing up, where there's just not enough resources to give you the time to think freely about these things, right? Like, what it looked like having to get your little brother or sister up from school when you just had the most massive wet dream of your life, and you're in the same room, and like it's on you to take care of all these responsibilities. You don't have that freedom of space.
And nobody told you about it.
Nobody's told you about it. My opinion is this is why a lot of the literature gets skewed towards that white perspective, because the privilege of time.
They the only one that got time.
You can sit and like, I might like this. Let me go. Like, you have the time for those things. But it also takes me to what happens when you start to have a family, right? And there's kids involved, or there's partnership. You're living in the same household, and now it's not just about how I'm showing up sexually. It's how I'm showing up in all these other ways. And in kids, just naturally exacerbate that level of like forgetting about all the stuff that we just talked about. And so that part of your work, right? I would love to call that into the space now, where like working with partners who have children, or have gone through, 20 years or whatever it may be, and their kids are grown, and now they're just starting to get back to like, well, we're trying to spice things up now that our kids are out the house type deal, right? But all these different scenarios of how children impact the sex aspect and the relationship piece, like,
my God.
Yeah.
So I think,
wait a minute.
Well, one of the important parts in what you just said about this journey, right, through puberty, through sexual growth, and when it gets stunted, especially for Black and brown bodies, the big word is adultification, right? So being perceived as an adult and treated like an adult. We know for Black bodies can start, I say as early as birth, but the theory says as early as 5, right? Where people are sexualizing our bodies. And because of the history in this country, because of the sexualization of the white gaze specifically, right? We are treated like we are sexual before we even are. Especially when we hit puberty. So when young Black bodies hit puberty, people automatically assume that they're ready for sex. And we know this because we've started to see all of the stories come out about the sexual debuts of young Black boys who were like, oh yeah, well, I slept with this grown woman when I was 8.
Yeah.
What?
Yep.
And I'm not going to name it assault because some people don't see their stories as assault, right? So I'm not going to make them victims of a story where they're not assuming victimhood. But that definitely is a boundary violation in the least. Absolutely. In the least, it's a boundary violation.
Right.
But never got to process it as a boundary violation. We get our first erections and our first like vaginal wetness in utero. That's how they can tell that the kid has a penis in utero.
Exactly. Yep.
So that part of ourselves has been demonized because it's been so abused by white supremacy.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I make sure my kid looks pure, right? Whether how they dress, how they talk, they don't swish when they walk, they're not twerking, whatever it is, it keeps them safer.
Back to respectability politics.
Exactly. And it's not true. It's not true. The more kids know about sex and sexuality, not just intercourse, because people think it's just penis and vagina intercourse. No, sex and sexuality, all of being, learning how to have intimate relationships, learning about their body's skin hunger and how much they like touch.
Yes.
Right. My basketball coach told me, he was like, I always knew you'd be doing something different because you surely did like hugs. And I was like, thanks, coach. I was probably like 12. Like, he was my coach like 12 through 15. Like, yeah, I needed hugs in my life. My bad, coach. Okay. Right. We knew I'd do something different. Right. So he told me that the other day. I was like, okay. I don't recall, but sure. And all of those factors, right, that go into building up sexuality. So when we see kids, we're not even recognizing the ish that was triggered in us. We just know I just walked in on my son masturbating. I'm gonna whoop his ass because that's inappropriate for his age. Like, whoa, how do we? This is a leap. I need us to come back. But what was so uncomfortable for you? And we are so uncomfortable. And especially the people who have experienced and survived sexual assault, they just want to make sure that doesn't happen to their kid. But they don't realize that in trying to prevent something from happening to their child, they're shutting down a lot of conversation, a lot of openness, a lot of exploration. Because you all have seen it. Anybody touch you today? Who touched you today?
Yeah.
We play hide and seek at school, Mom. Nothing happened, right?
Yeah.
So it shuts down that conversation because now they're scared.
Yeah.
Or we don't want to teach kids that a vulva is a vulva and a penis is a penis.
Right.
Because those are dirty words. Or people don't know the word vulva. Let's be real honest. People are still calling the clitoris a third nipple. Or they don't think that kids need to know that they have a clitoris because it's the devil's doorknob or devil's doorbell. And it can't be unrung. Literally, I had a conversation with second grade parents. They're like, we don't think they need to know that the clitoris has 8,000 nerve endings. And I'm like, well, one.
So they found out already.
Right. I was like, that's a fact. That's not really true because that's actually about a cow. But okay. And two, how are they going to know to clean it if they don't know they have it? You just going to let smegma build up around the clitoral hood?
Yeah. But see, and this is where like that conversation around being a sex positive parent, it is so intriguing for me, because I look at how all of that, right, is just maybe a fourth of the conversation around like, so what's y'all sex life look like in the midst of all these things that you're doing to your children, right? Like as you continue to find new ways to guard and protect them, whilst at the same time like truncating their own growth. Let's hear about how that's working for you. Like,
exactly,
where you at with your stuff with it, you know?
Right?
And
can we have conversations?
Do you ever come across clients who are fully embracing their own sexuality but stifling their children?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All the time, right? And so the thing I lean into the most is something I learned from Dr. Tracy Gilbert about, do you want your children to learn from your wisdom or from pain? Right? Because you didn't have that knowledge growing up. Most of our parents weren't sex positive parents, if we're going to be real honest, right?
And we know our grandparents were.
Right. They were like, don't bring home no babies because I ain't taking care of none.
Right.
Maybe here go a book. Right. And my mom, I mean, I'm built different. Like my mom was built different. Like I got condoms when I was 12 because my mom was sexually active when she was 12. And she was like, hey, I know how the world works. I sold them. Like I wasn't sexually active in that way until I was like 17 or 18. Let me make some money real quick.
You've been making money off sex for a long time, Lex.
For a long time. Yes. I got my first sex toy. I think I might have been 12 or 13. So, and I was upset because I thought it was a packet of candy. I was mad. It was not a packet of candy because I did not get candy growing up. So it looked like a little Lifesavers, but it was a little torpedo bullet. And I didn't know what it was. I was like, Mom, what the hell is this? And she's like, oh, it's for your intimate time, blah, blah, blah. She told my twin brother that if he masturbated, it would make his penis grow.
I mean,
right? It's not true.
It's not. It's good. It's good inspiration for that time.
Right. And, just giving him permission to explore his body. Right. And I feel my mom had, we were twins. So we both hit puberty at the same time. And we were like 9 when I started menstruating. I was 9 and my brother came in that same day and was like, Mom, I had a dream and I woke up and my sheets were a mess.
Wow.
Right. So we hit puberty like within the same week. I was like, oh, I'm sorry you survived it. But their own sex lives, right? They're also finding that they're having trouble with opening up the exploration, with having conversations of like, I don't really like that, but I just let them do it so we can be done.
To get it over with.
And I'm like,
that's a lot. I've heard that a lot in my family. Like,
pleasure isn't the absence of pain.
Right.
Pleasure is not the absence of pain. Like just because it doesn't hurt doesn't mean that you're enjoying it. So they also don't have the language. They don't know, like, let's talk about your clitoris. Let's talk about your nipples. Let's talk about all of the parts of your body that can feel pleasure, right? It's not just this one sexual organ. I think typically men get to be pigeonholed to be like, I can just like my dick and that's it. I'm like, what about the back of your knee? Does that feel good if it's nibbled on? They be like,
it does.
I ain't never done that. Should we be open to some sensual massage and play? Like, how can we facilitate more pleasure for you? They're like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, so let's try. See what that looks like. And they're like, yo, I ain't know my body could feel right. Exactly. I'm like, yeah, your body can feel all sorts of sensations. Again, it's not just the absence of pain. You don't have to just be okay. You can seek after pleasure. And that permission is something that has to be transferred, right? So whatever parental units, throuple, couple, quad, whatever they're in, once they learn that full embodiment of pleasure, they're then able to teach that to children.
You cannot teach what you do not have.
Exactly.
And that's that on that.
It's a hard road. We've never been able to access our pleasure. It's never been just like right there. I can grab it and it's okay.
Yeah.
It looks like you're a hedonist. It looks like you're bad. It looks like you're not self-sacrificing for the greater good. What do you mean you're out here enjoying everything? That means you're not a hard worker or you're a scammer.
Some way.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
You're irresponsible. Like, and I'm a recovering Baptist. So I will say, like, I don't think your God put you on this planet to suffer.
In any way, shape, or form.
That doesn't make sense. Why would he create you to suffer and suffer solely if he loves you so much? That don't match.
Don't. Listen. So this season, our theme is alt black. All right. Hashtag alt black for everybody that's been on it.
Don't forget the hashtag.
And we talk about it in the introduction a little bit, but I always like to bring it back into the space, especially, you know, when we get to going on the topics and like we double, triple, and quadruple clicking on stuff. All of this stuff that we tend to talk about in the space of DMA is it's sometimes very like niche in a sense, which is so weird to me. And JD, I can almost guess that you sometimes feel this as well, but it's like we really do forget that we built this really interesting universe, this bubble around who we are, how we exist through the balancing of our masculine and feminine energy. So it's like, oh yeah, I forgot that motherfuckers was out there doing that stupid shit. And it challenging. Like the conversation, JD, when we was tapped in the other day and you were telling me about like how you were experiencing the conversation around this whole abortion law shit, right?
Right.
And for me, it was slightly different because it was like I'm reintroducing myself to the fact that this is a thing because it is not a component of my immediate
your realm doesn't function that way.
Like, and I mean from a perspective of like, I just simply hang around people that take responsibility for the shit. And so it's not as prevalent, but then it hits you in the mouth and you're like, damn, like I forgot that these
big world out there. Yeah,
these motherfuckers are still out here trying to like these most ignorant ways.
Still niggering.
Yo.
All shapes and sizes. Yeah.
So
that's hilarious.
Before we close out, I wanted to jump into that really quick from the perspective of like, as we embrace the space of alt black in this season of DMA, is there a message or is there information that you constantly give? Like, I know you're huge on the social media tip. If you don't follow Dr. Lex on TikTok, like you might need to do that right now, right? Like we'll get into all those
right now.
But a message that you start to bring now that you know is more something that's current, right? Like that you're seeing and you've been talking about that you really feel people need right now in the midst of all of this stuff.
So I think there's two things. I have that same experience. That's why I have two Facebook pages. Like one from my old community from, Hood and College Park. That's and right. I just be like,
College Park.
Oh, I can't. Like,
okay. I'm still here. I'm not doing it. I'm not my energy. I can't. I'm gonna bill you.
Right. Thank you.
I'm gonna bill you for this answer. The thing that I think is most pertinent that I do want people to know that it is contemporary is that innocence does not mean not having knowledge.
Ooh. So innocent does not equate to ignorance.
Exactly. Right. So people think to keep innocence, specifically for kids,
stupid. Oh.
Right. You keep them from knowledge. That's not what that is.
Innocence is virtue.
Exactly. Right. And it doesn't mean that giving them information is going to violate their innocence.
Wow.
And it keeps them ignorant, and it also is harmful, right? So that ignorance can be harmful. And I'll share a quick story. Like I have all sorts of like penises and demo things in my office that my kids regularly see, and my kids are 3 and 5, right? Yep. And so this technically my 3-year-old considers her penis, and I'd be like, all right, but my 5-year-old.
Those that are listening to this on podcast, she just literally pulled out a bunch of different phallic apparatuses that look like penises.
Sorry, community guidelines.
Or for sex?
No, these are all just models.
Yep.
They actually have stories that go with them. They're from Sex Ed Plus. They are all consensually based models that people have created of themselves and like allowed to be reprinted and sent out so we can have different examples of different penis sizes and the stories that go with them.
Hey.
And my 5-year-old was in the bathroom. Dope, right? And a kid showed her his penis. And she was like, I don't want to see your penis. Put your penis away. And that was it.
Next.
Now, I was pissed. All right. I'm not going to lie. Like, I was like, so do I need to fight his daddy off? Like, school grounds or on school grounds? Which going to be easier for you, director? You let me know so I can make your job easier. Because I'm ready. And my hands. I was going to fight the 5-year-old and his daddy. And look, my hands are newer than my degrees. And I have a bail fund because I'm privileged. So we can go.
You're my kind of people. Like, I have resources allocated purely for people like you.
Again, recovering Baptist.
Come on.
Jesus used to flip tables and crack whips. Like, we can go.
Won't nobody flip nothing over like a Baptist neither.
Look, church pew, say word. So, but my kid was like, so I asked my kid, testing how they felt about the situation. She was like, I was annoyed. He was being silly, so I didn't play with him the rest of the day because he was rude. We don't expose our genitals at school, Mom.
Bang,
and I'm like, you're exactly right. But there wasn't a trauma, right? It wasn't like, I saw this thing. Oh my God, I didn't know what it was. I'm so scared.
Yeah.
She didn't register any of that.
Nope.
She didn't want to invite him to the birthday party because she was like, he don't know how to behave, Mom. He can't come. And I was like, that's a good boundary. Like, let's go with that.
I rock.
But she knew what it was, right? It doesn't make her sexual. It doesn't make anybody grooming her. It makes her less susceptible to other people trying to gain access. Like, hey, let me show you something. And she'd be like, I seen a penis. That's not impressive.
Right.
I don't want to see your penis. I'm good. Because she has that knowledge at 5.
Yeah. And listen, as a parent of a 6-year-old, I often consider like how my actions with regards to sex specifically, like what is the actual impact going to be 20 years down the line? And when I see my son comfortable with himself and able to like articulate what is or what is not, right? And simple stuff like, yo, what are you doing under there? I'm just playing with my penis. Okay, cool. Right? Just something that simple. Like he doesn't feel the need to hide it as if it's a bad thing. Like, yo, you at home and you under a blanket watching a movie. Like, I like to touch my dick during that time too. There's nothing wrong with that. But he feels it. And for them to feel it early, I love that there are so many of us out here doing this for these kids.
Oh, I'm so thankful you're raising your son at the same time I'm raising my kid.
Because I know what it's going to be like. Like, we know when we hit that age, when we hit those teens, and we didn't have access the way they have access.
It's like a wall. That's different.
Listen,
like, why didn't nobody tell me? It was like, I can't sleep. I can't sleep. I can't focus. I'm easily distracted. Right. No. And it's funny. So we're a partner and I, we were watching Big Mouth cartoon. And it just so happened to be the puberty episode, like literally this morning.
Love it.
And yeah, it's so funny because you have this juxtaposition of families, right? Like you have one kid and it started because these 2 friends were doing a sleepover, right? Comes out the bathroom, other kid like pranks him, towel drops, sees his dick. And it just so happens that he started puberty sooner. So it's like, oh, his is bigger and hairier than mine. Now I feel, insecure about it. But his parents are super open. And it's like, oh, listen, yours will grow. Or maybe it'll be like mine and it won't. But the point is, so long as you have an intuitive enough understanding of, your partner's body, it's really not going to matter that much. Right. And then his mom chimes in and it's like, oh, yeah, no, I've been with guys who are more endowed than your dad. And honestly, he's like, he's like my glass slipper. So this is on the other side. Like parents find out he's going through puberty. His mom wants him to like read the book. His dad's like, next time you feel the urge to ask and be curious, don't know anything. And then of course he has a wet dream and freaks out. And like, he's slow dancing at the 8th grade prom, messes up his pants, runs to the bathroom, drops his phone. It turns into a whole thing. And all of this could have been prevented by simply saying, hey, you're at this stage in life now where you're going to feel these things. As opposed to now, his libido is like metamorphosed into this like big hairy monster that whispers in his ear.
The hormone monsters.
Oh man, listen, I will tell y'all right now, the first time I saw Big Mouth, the first thing I thought was, God, I can't wait till my kid is old enough to watch this shit. Because to put it in that format is like, all right, kids, so what you want to talk about? Like, pick which one. Because we just loved it. We gotta take some time to close this thing out, y'all, because we have kept
we're coming up on an hour. Yeah.
Yes, we have kept the good doctor for the time in which we have arranged, and we need to release her back into the wild world of wilderness of taking care of y'all mother suckers. We need to get y'all sexual lives together. But before we close out, thank you.
Resources.
Huh?
Resources.
Before we close out,
yes.
We always like to give y'all resources and things that you can tap into. So, Dr. Lex, at this point, you are the resource. So, where can they find you? They follow you. What resources are you putting out into the world in the upcoming?
What Black erotica should they be reading? Right.
You know.
I got you. So Welcome to Seaport is the Black erotica you should be reading. There are, I think, 3 books in the series. They're really good. It's really good. There's some military men in there. There's some polycules. There's some queerness. So all of the things, and they all Black and with big booties.
Are there pictures?
There's only the picture in the cover.
That's
and
enough. That's all we need
it fits the character.
But there are big booties on the cover, though, right? Like, are the big booties on the cover?
No, it's big titties on the cover.
Hey, Les.
The other thing is some Lex, Lex, sex, sex, doc, as in doctor, DOC, across all social media platforms. And I'm lexsexdoc.com. Right now, we are going to be releasing some sex positive, shame-free sex ed webinars. And so those will be up on the site. It's 35 minutes of me talking to you about different things. There's sexting and porn. We're talking about adolescent sexuality, what that looks like. What are the behaviors you should be looking for? What are the red flags you should be looking for? And then also talking about how to be a sex positive parent, how not to yuck somebody's yum, how to move from a denial stage to a celebration stage for sexuality for adolescents and what that looks like. And then, see me on the interwebs because there's a bunch of things. And I'm looking most forward to a couple of conferences, one of them being Sex Down South, which is one of my favorite conferences. It's in the fall of the year. It's in Atlanta, where I'm from. Courses include the art of face sitting. There is a dungeon that is typically run by kinky Black folks.
Yes.
There's a sexual attitude reassessment that happens. Bunch of vending, but it is an all-around amazing conference. So if you're around in the fall, then definitely look into coming down because it's a great play party. It's a great educational space. And I hope to see everybody there every year.
God bless Atlanta.
God bless. And no place else.
Nowhere else.
Oh, man.
Right. So gratitude, latitude, attitude. So we are primarily grateful for you. Thank you, Lex.
Appreciate you.
Love being here.
And also Lex's mama, who planted the seed and set the tone.
And Lex's daddy.
Yep, and my daddy. He was there through all the conversation.
Okay, did he bring the sex toys and the condoms, though?
There was probably a conversation to be had.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Shouts out to who made you. All right. Our attitude, Brother Courtney.
Yeah. Innocence does not mean not having knowledge. To quote the good doctor, in real time, thank you for that, Jim. I think a lot of us can take a lot away from that in terms of how we approach our attitude to these conversations about sex, wholeness, relationships, kink, sex positive parenting, all of that. Like, just understand and remember, y'all, innocence does not mean not having knowledge. And last but not least, JD, hit us with that latitude.
Right. See, me, I'm super duper fly. super duper fly. Roll your hands up my thigh and go super duper high. In the words of the prophetess Missy Elliott. And the Latitude, listen, just go listen to Can We Get Kinky by SWV. It's a classic and it's great.
Ta-da. I love it. That's it. And if all hearts and minds are cleared, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next time. Same bad time. Same bad channel. Peace and love.